People who have visited the US, what is your WTF America story? At least 30 huge women marching into a Walmart in a single file line. Almost all of them with holstered handguns on their belts. All of them went straight to the McDonald's, never breaking formation, never saying a word, except to the cashier. It was majestic, like a squadron of fully armed Zeppelin floating by during WW2. This one isn't really negative, but still amazes me. I'm from Sweden, and visited New York a few summers ago with my family. We had just gotten off the bus, and my stepsister was feeling really nauseous from the bus ride. She walks up to a garbage can, and takes a few deep breaths, trying to not vomit. Suddenly a guy in a suit with a briefcase walks up, asks if she's alright, tells her to wait there, and comes back a few seconds later with a bottle of water for her. Just a complete stranger. That's not something you'd see in Sweden. Everyone was so nice. Why are all the meal portions so big? The bathroom stall gap is real. I'm going to fly to the US in a couple of weeks for the first time. Already had a WTF moment. I had to fill out some personal stuff to get into the country. Questions like, are you planning a genocide in the USA? Yes or no? Are you planning a terroristic attack in the USA? Yes or no? I mean, if someone really is planning something like that and succeed, what then? He lied to us. How could he? He said he won't do a genocide and now look at that. So, being Indonesian, world's largest Muslim country, and male, my dad always gets taken into a special room for interrogation every time we arrive in the US. When I happened to be with him, I got tired of waiting on my own. So I went to one of the officers guarding the area and asked how long it would take for my dad to get out. He went, "Oh my god, honey, you're all alone." And suddenly everyone was rushing to get my dad out as soon as possible, kept asking me if there was anything I needed, and kept telling me not to be scared. Obviously that made me actually nervous. What the fuck is happening? Then I found out Americans just suck at telling nation ages, and apparently I looked 8 to 12. They thought they made my dad leave a child all alone in a foreign country. I was 16. One summer some friends and I road tripped from Pennsylvania to Utah and back, 10,000 kilometers in 2 weeks. Good times. We are from Canada, so we are pretty used to Americanisms. However, we found the stark contrast in billboards in the Bible Belt to be amusing. Every couple clicks it alternated between Jesus saves, confess your sins, and XXX girls girls girls, next exit. Seeing scripture on the back of transport trucks was pretty bizarre too. And the aggressive preachers on the radio. And the giant 50-foot crosses, plural. I mean, it's called the Bible Belt for a reason, but I didn't really appreciate the scope until I was there. Mine was on the flight home. We'd just landed, and I overheard the following exchange. "Mom, where are we?" "Amsterdam. It's in Germany." When I was living in California back in the late 90s minus 2000, the news came on and announced that one of the stories would be NATO starts bombing Kosovo. I turned the news up, only to have to sit through the more important story first. Out of season rain in La. I remember visiting Florida a few years back when I was young. After getting lost on the way to the house we would be staying at, and pulled into a shopping center car park. My father flagged down a sheriff driving a Ford pickup with a crew cab and began to ask him for directions. The cop was sitting next to our minivan, with the huge V8 still running and shaking the floor under us. My dad said, "Thanks for pulling over, we're a bit lost." And he said in a thick southern accent, "No problem, sir." My dad looked back and noticed there was about 4 cars sitting behind the cop, not moving or honking their horns or anything. And my dad said, "Do you want to pull over so you aren't in the way of the cars?" And he just said, "No sir." I'll always remember that. It may not be a funny story, but the calmness of the held up traffic and the totally straight face and demeanor of the sheriff was one of my first experiences of America, and one I will always remember. I was in Nick for New Year's Eve 2006/07. A guy next to me overheard I was Australian and grabbed my hand and told me he was praying for me due to the loss of Steve Irwin. Someone near us overheard and also joined in. So I, an Australian atheist with little care for Stephen Irwin, found myself in the midst of a small, but very enthusiastic, prayer circle. I went to the US this summer to work for my uncle's company in La for 8 weeks. I'm currently studying at university in the UK. I decided to fly up to San Francisco to visit my cousin for the weekend and flew from LAX. After my return flight I was about to exit the LAX American terminal when all the police around me got their guns out and started shouting about a shooter at the airport. Chaos erupted around me with people everywhere throwing their suitcases to the floor and screaming. I had no idea what to do. I had just bought a tea from Starbucks and I didn't really want to throw it on the floor and run about, so I followed this stampede of people through the terminal. I found a room to hide in with 20 other people. We all lay on the floor being quiet, trying to stay calm. People all around me calling their loved ones, saying their goodbyes. It was insane. I didn't have any service on my AT&T phone, so I just sat there drinking tea contemplating what I would do if a gunman appeared. I realize now it was the most British thing to do at that moment. We were in there for 25 minutes when we got told it was clear. All of this happened because the police heard a loud noise and there was someone dressed as Zorro, which raised suspicions. WTF America. Posted this yesterday in a different thread. I live in Michigan. Husband is from the UK. His family and 2 best friends flew over for the wedding. We had a combined stag night / bachelorette. We all went out and partied pretty hard. Toward the end of the night we were at a small bar in my tiny town and the locals were treating our British companions like celebrities. Overheard a girl tell my husband's mate, who is black, "I didn't know they had your kind over there." At SeaWorld I got out of the way to let a person in a motorized scooter behind me see into the tank. They got up then and walked forward and took my place against the glass. I was really confused. I didn't understand that some non-paralyzed people choose to use motorized scooters. I have yet to see this in any other country. Moved to the US with my family in the mid-90s and started high school my junior year. Back home in Norway I had played basketball for a few years, enjoyed it and thought I'd try out for the school team, thinking it would be like home. Practice once or twice a week for an hour and a game against and for school once in a while. Yeah, not so much. Quickly realized sports is a huge deal in the US. I made JV. There were a couple other JRS on the team, so I didn't sweat it. The first practice went on for 2,5 hours, and I was pretty nauseous after all the suicide running drills and numerous other exercises. Realizing I hadn't asked too many details beforehand, I asked a teammate how often practice was, and was promptly shocked to find out we had practice 4 times a week for 2,5 hours plus 2 games per week. And that was JV. Suffice to say the coming months were quite exhausting and didn't leave much time for anything else. We did place first in our state though, and I got whipped into shape pretty good. So yeah, you Americans don't mess around when it comes to sports. Here is a conversation I had with a cashier in a Dunkin' Donuts in Ohio. Are you deaf? You speak funny. Me, HMM. I have an accent. I'm French Canadian. What do you mean? Me, well, English isn't my first language. So you're not deaf. Because you speak really slowly, and in a weird way. Me, it's a French accent. Okay, I understand. Okay, it's a Canadian accent. Weird. Have a few. I lived in the Midwest as a kid, but I'm Australian. I had a woman who genuinely thought we took a bridge to get to America from Australia. I had a teacher who would not let me into the classroom in the morning unless I said a dingo stole my baby. I was in grade 2 and had no clue what it meant. This same teacher would make me recite the Pledge of Allegiance. My sister showed up on the first day of school to find the discipline corner was Australia, with a badly drawn map that didn't include Tasmania, because that was where the convicts go. And lastly, the many people, children and adults, asking me if we rode kangaroos. My dad lives in America, and I visited him for the first time in 10 years last September. First thing he did was take me to the local police gun range, where I was taught how to fire a fully automatic assault rifle, a semi-automatic rifle, and a variety of pistols. They didn't even know my name, and they put a gun in my hands and told me to shoot at a target. Best fucking day ever. Back in the 90s I was in San Francisco. In Australia I had never seen a beggar, but there were heaps of them in San Francisco. Anyway, I was walking around, and this beggar comes up to me shaking his can full of coins in my face. He never said a word, just shook his can in my face. So I said to him, "No thanks mate. I've got enough coins of my own." He gave me a look of WTF. That is my WTF America story. Walking into a supermarket and seeing the endless cereal lanes and the amount you can choose from blew my mind. Also, when I was working in a camp over a summer, I was devastated to see that the people who ran the place would actually choose to use throwaway dishes, cups, and cutleries instead of normal ones. I don't know if that's typical, but it sure hurt my eco-protecting side to see all the waste just one day would generate. Had a good time though. One summer when we visited some friends out in Tennessee and we are eating fresh deer he'd shot that afternoon off his BBQ, drinking beer and sharing differences in culture, at which point out of nowhere he pulls out a pellet gun and shoots a squirrel from the top of a phone line. He then proceeded to cut, wash, clean and cook the squirrel. Tasted like chicken. American are unreasonably nice. Road trip 15 years ago, car breaks down on the freeway. 3 cars stop. One guy fixes my car, one guy orders and subsequently pays for the part to fix the car, and third guy, his brother-in-law delivers it. All in about 30 minutes. Then we all go out for dinner and buy me and my buddy dinner. The guy who fixed our car emails his cousins in Colorado, and a week later we are having dinner and staying the night at their place. I hear WTF stories about America, but when I think of any of my WTF America stories, I have had nothing but amazing experiences. Very boring one. The menu board at the cashier of a coffee shop said a black coffee costs $2.85. I got my change ready, and when I ordered it the total came up to something like $3.1x. I was taken very aback by that, and asked the cashier, "That price is before tax, buddy. WTF is the point of having a price menu when it's inaccurate then?" Driving through town with an hour on Mile app to get some rounds for going out shooting in the woods. My country just this year allowed to buy folding knives that you can open with one hand after many years of complete ban. And yes, I ordered the one that I wanted since I was a kid despite not needing it. When we visited Las Vegas we shared hotel with a fat activist conference. One of the ladies argued with management about getting a floor level room since she could not fit into the elevator. I honestly didn't think people could be that size. Pleasantly surprised about beer quality though. You hear so many bad things about American beer. Should hold back on the sugar in the beers, like everything else. Some of mine were WTF. Why is there so much land everywhere? WTF. Why is everyone's house so big? WTF. Why are the roads so big? Explains why the cars are so big. WTF. Why is fuel, gas, so cheap? WTF. Why are strangers talking to me? WTF. Why is fruit so expensive? WTF. How can I get this much meat in a meal and it still cost less than $10? WTF. Why am I getting ID'd, carded, everywhere? WTF. No, to another person, I'm not Australian. I'm English, damn it.